It's Jody with All About the Harvest, where I teach you how to grow, use, and preserve your harvest. And this week I am coming at you with my week one of the pantry update for 2025. And let me tell you, it has been unexpected. First things, if you notice, I am not in my kitchen like I normally am when I am recording, and that is because we had a dishwasher fail. So our dishwasher leaked under our flooring. So the wetness then caused our island to become ruined. Today is Wednesday, January 8th. So on Monday, a mitigation team came out. They ripped up our flooring. They put in fans and dehumidifiers and all sorts of things. It's a literal whirlwind in my kitchen, and we are really unable to use our kitchen at this point. So as of about an hour ago, they did take out all of the fans and dehumidifiers and said that it is now dry, but we still have a very rough kitchen. It's more usable than it was because I don't have fans in my way and a wind tunnel. However, it's not ideal. So we are waiting to get some quotes on replacing our entire flooring that runs throughout. We have an open concept, so our kitchen and our living room is one big room, and then that also runs into our laundry room, bathroom, off of the kitchen, and then a couple closets. So all of that flooring has to get replaced, and then our kitchen island has to get replaced, and they have to take our granite countertops off and preserve that, and then replace everything and then get them back on there. So it is going to be a big project, and at some point we'll have to move out of our house while that happens, but we don't know when that's going to happen yet. So in the meantime, I'm still committed to doing what I can for this challenge, and I have been still eating out of the pantry every day. The other fun fact is, you notice I'm wearing my glasses today. So on Sunday night I took out my contact, and I must have poked my eye hard enough that I broke some blood vessels in my eye, and my eye is actually it's sore. It hurts to blink. It hurts to move my eye around. It feels like my eyeball is bruised, and I'm just going to wear my glasses until this feels better. So I have that going on as well. So it is an interesting week. Week one of the Pantry Challenge and week one of 2025 has been an interesting week and emotionally trying. I'm also doing some work from home where I am online. I do things for trials and arbitrations, and I am the person that puts up the tech for trial. So I'm the person that puts up the evidence, the videos, things like that. I needed to do that from home. So it has been very trying to do that while all of that has been going on beyond my door here. Without further ado, let me get on with my update, tell you what I did do. I did do quite a bit, and I did some canning projects as well. Let's just get into it. So on January 1st, we made a meal kit, and it was something that I had in my pantry, something that I needed to use. I made this. It was called a Korean barbecue beef kit, and instead of using beef, I used some venison flank steaks that we had in our freezer. Just needed to use them up, so I used 2 of those. They were in a package. I used some bell pepper strips that I had in the freezer, and obviously I used that meal kit. And then also from the pantry that day, I took out a quart of tomato juice, and I was just drinking on that. On day one, I did that for dinner, and then obviously I had the tomato juice and then just kind of had some leftovers for the first day. On January 2nd, I had a leftover lunch from New Year's Eve dinner, and then on New Year's Eve we made boiled potatoes. And one of the things, I don't really care for boiled potatoes reheated. I don't use the microwave. I do reheat everything in the oven, but I just don't like boiled potatoes reheated. So generally what I do with my boiled potatoes is I will make a potato salad. That's what I did on January 2nd, is I made a potato salad. So I did my hard-boiled eggs, the potatoes, and then mayonnaise, yellow mustard, and salt and pepper. That's all I do for my potato salad. It's really good, very simple, but really good. It was my mom's recipe, and I still use it to this day. I love it. Very simple. So I made those, and then I also canned pumpkin. on Thursday the 2nd. So I was given a pumpkin. A friend of mine had posted that she had a pumpkin from Halloween and she had not painted it. It wasn't carved. It was just sitting out on her porch. So she asked if anybody wanted it. So I grabbed it, put it in my garage. I live in Wisconsin, so it's very cold. And then I canned the pumpkin on Thursday. Now, one of the jars did not seal, so I put that jar in the fridge, and I'm actually going to be using that with some other canned items that I had. I'm going to use that. I'll show you that when I do that. For dinner, my husband had the leftover barbecue beef kit, which was made with venison instead of beef. And then I just had some potato salad and tomato juice. Then on Friday the 3rd, for lunch, we made another thing from the freezer. We made venison roast sandwiches. So my husband took a venison roast a while ago and he marinated it, smoked it, and then cut it into slices and then made like a roast beef sandwich with it. And we had extra. He had given some to friends and family, but then some of it he actually vacuum sealed and put in the freezer so we could have in the future. So I took one of those packages out. We had some like hoagie buns and some provolone cheese. And then I had taken like a McCormick au jus packet. And the last time we made it, I made half of that au jus packet. So on Friday when I made it, I made the other half of that au jus packet, which made about a cup and a half of au jus sauce. And so we used that to put on our sandwiches and to dip our sandwiches in. So that's what we had for lunch. It was really good. For dinner, I just did more snacking out of the fridge and pantry. On Friday, I also canned chili con carne. So chili con carne, there is a safe canning recipe for that from the National Center for Home Food Preservation. And in that, you use 3 pounds of beef. So what I did is I used 2 pounds of ground beef and then 1 pound of ground venison. So I got those out of my freezer. And then you use 2 quarts of either crushed tomatoes or whole tomatoes. So I had tomatoes left over yet from my garden that I had in my basement. So, when they're green, I put them on either cardboard or like some kind of paper down in my basement, and then as they turn red, then I use them. I'll either freeze them or use them. So for this, I actually used them and I made crushed tomatoes with them from fresh. So I blanched the tomatoes, skinned them, cored them, and then made crushed tomatoes, and I used that. And then the other thing I used for my freezer was a pack of frozen peppers. So I needed peppers for the recipe, and that is what I used. So that was on Friday, January 3rd. Then on Saturday the 4th, I also canned another recipe. I canned the Thai coconut squash soup recipe, and that is from this book. It's the All New Ball Book of Preserving and Canning, and I'll put a link to this book in the description below. As you can see, I have plenty of pages tabbed, and this was on page 284 of that book, and let me just go to that. So here is what it looks like. So the beauty of this was I was able to use some things from my pantry and some fresh produce. I made a double batch, and so it required 2 quarts of chicken or vegetable broth for a single batch. So I did 4 quarts. I had received 2 store-bought quarts of vegetable stock. So I used that up in my pantry. Then I used 3 pints of vegetable stock and 1 pint of chicken stock. And I did that because my vegetable stock, like I try to FIFO first in, first out. The pints of the vegetable stock, I needed to use those first, so I used those. I did have quarts of vegetable stock, but they were newer, so I wanted to use the older ones first. So anyways, I was able to get 4 pints of stock out of my pantry of homemade stock, and then 2 quarts of vegetable stock out of my pantry that was store-bought. So the other thing I used was some dried red bell pepper dices that I had. So dehydrated, I should say. So there were dehydrated diced red peppers. This recipe called for diced red peppers. And because it's a soup recipe, it gets very hydrated. So I used those for my pantry. I'm just saying things that I'd used up for my pantry. The other thing was butternut squash. So this called for 1.5 pounds of butternut, acorn, or other orange flesh squash. I grew my own butternut squash this year. I used up 1 butternut squash, and then I used my walking onions from my garden. I had some of those still in my fridge, and so I used a bunch of those up. I made that and I canned that recipe, and the broth was very, very, very good. It was so good. And I had some of the broth left over, so I saved it because I was thinking of doing like a pho soup with it. It's really good. And we have some of the leftover roast venison, and so my husband's like, oh, you could put some of that in there with some other stuff. I don't have any bean sprouts, so if I was going to do that, I'd need to go and get some bean sprouts. Regardless, that is what I can that day. So that day, on Saturday, my husband had a pizza from the freezer, and then I ate some black bean soup that I'd canned some, and one jar didn't seal, so I had black bean soup for lunch. And then I had like a leftover for dinner. I had the roast venison sandwich. I had another one of those. And I used some of the queso fresco. So the other thing that I did, which I didn't mention it in the first few days, I don't remember what day it was, but I took out a 10-pound wheel of queso fresco, and my husband and I broke it up into smaller packs. We had 8 one-pound packs that we put in the freezer, and then we took out like, it was like 1 pound something, and that was in our fridge. I'm not sure where the other, half a pound went. Regardless, I used some queso fresco. And then on Sunday, my husband he sometimes gets the hankering for these cinnamon rolls, so he had those in the fridge. He made those, and then he had a pizza again later on. And then I made, from the freezer, I made some jalapeno poppers. So I pre-made a bunch of jalapeno poppers in the fall. I made over 102 jalapeno poppers, and I vacuum sealed them in like packs of around 8, like from 6 to 9, I think, depending how I could fit them in there, of jalapeno poppers. So I took a pack of those out of the freezer. I made those, and then I made some curly fries. I mentioned in my original video on how to do the pantry challenge. We have a lot of different fries, and so I made some curly fries to go with that from the freezer, because that was more of like a late lunch kind of thing, early dinner. Then later on I just ate some stuff from the pantry. That night, Sunday night, I made an egg bake that we could have for breakfast throughout the week, or lunch. And this particular egg bake, the beauty of it is I had this carton of eggs that was frozen. It was like a literal frozen carton of eggs. So I used that from the freezer. I asked my husband what he wanted in it. So typically I make whatever he wants in it. And so the beauty was I was able to use some things from our fridge and our freezer and our dehydrated goods. From a meat perspective, I had this spicy sausage links bacon. It looks like bacon, but it's sausage, and this was spicy. I fried up that sausage. I did it in the oven, I guess bacon looking sausage, and then I ripped that up and I added that in with the eggs. I added some heavy whipping cream from our fridge that we had for another recipe, so I used that up. I put that in there. Obviously salt and pepper. We have tomatoes that I call them sun-dried tomatoes. So I season them with like Italian seasoning. I put them in my dehydrator and I dehydrate them. And so he wanted those added in. He wanted some dehydrated mushrooms added in. And then he wanted some spinach added in and feta. For spinach, so I did a video on it, and I can link it if you're interested, on goosefoot or lamb's quarters. It's considered like a wild spinach. It's also like a weed. People consider it a weed, but it's very nutritious and you can use it in place of spinach. And so I had some growing in my garden, and so I harvested it and then I froze it in bags, and so I have some of that. So I took some of that out of the freezer and I added that in to this egg bake. So I was able to use some of that, the dried tomatoes, the dried mushrooms, and I rehydrate the mushrooms and the tomatoes before adding it into the egg bake. Obviously the sausage bacon from the freezer, I got rid of that, and then some feta cheese. And so added all that in and then made that, and so he has that for the week that he can have, and he has been having that for the week, which you'll see. So that is what I did on Sunday. Then on Monday morning, we knew that this mitigation team was going to be coming to take a look at the flooring and everything, and we had an idea. We weren't sure, we had an idea that they were going to be ripping up the floor that day. For morning, I basically do coffee, and then whenever I get hungry is when I eat. So made some coffee, and then they started ripping up the floor, and so our kitchen was basically unusable. So I ate like granola bars, and I ate some of my potato salad from the fridge. So that night, that was on Monday night, this house was like very chaotic. You could not use the kitchen. So my husband and I decided just to go out for Mexican, and I got some ceviche because I love it, but I knew I'd have enough that I'd have leftovers, because the next day on Tuesday I was going to be working in my office here. Probably wouldn't get a lot of time for lunch, and I'd have to just grab something out of the fridge. Like I can't make anything in my kitchen right now. So I basically had to just take something out of the fridge and kind of eat it in here. And so I planned, like, I'm going to get ceviche because I can just eat that here in my, I don't have to heat it up. So that's exactly what I did. On Tuesday, then, my husband grabbed an egg bake, and he brought that to work and had that at work. For Tuesday morning, then, I had this oatmeal in a cup kind of thing, and I just heated that up, put some hot water in it, because we do have like a hot water machine in our house. So I put that in, and I had that for breakfast. And then throughout the day, I had like granola bar and chips and like stuff that I had in my pantry. And then for lunch, of course, I had my ceviche. And then for dinner, because I was working late, this particular arbitration that I'm working on is in California time, so it's a little bit later for me. I'm in Central time, and so I had the leftover tomato juice and obviously my ceviche. So that's kind of what I ate throughout the day from the house. So all that I ate from the house, and then we were granted a hotel stay because our kitchen is unusable, and I make every meal from our house. So they said, okay, you can stay at a hotel for the night. Last night I packed up some stuff, and then on my way over to the hotel, it was about 8 o'clock, 8:30. When I finally got done, I just stopped and grabbed a Subway sub for my dinner, and that's what I had. And then this morning, before I got back here to meet the crew to check on the damages and make sure they were dry, the hotel had breakfast. So I just got some breakfast at the hotel. It was included, and grabbed some coffee from them, and here I am. So that is where we are at for week 1. So I did get 3 canning projects in. I was able to make a lot of stuff from our freezer. I did eat a lot from our pantry. The last 2 evenings, unfortunately, we couldn't make anything for dinner in our kitchen, but that is understandable. And so now we just kind of have to reassess everything with our kitchen and how it is now. What can we do? Because we do have to be careful, because our flooring is ripped up all around our island, I guess, all sides except for a small bit of one side, which is a small portion of it. But like in front of our sink, on the side, on the back side where we would normally sit and eat, is all ripped up. And they said we have to be careful because there are staples that are up. In fact, there's a bunch of them in front of our sink. I put like painter's tape over it so that we would see it, so we wouldn't step on it. So we just have to figure out how we can navigate around this. I did think, well, we could do some crock pot meals and things like that. We still got to do dishes. We don't have a dishwasher, obviously. We're getting rid of it, and then after this whole remodel is done for the floor and the island, then we will just get a brand new dishwasher. So we'd have to do, we have to do our own dishes, which is fine. But given everything, we just have to figure everything out. So for week 1, given everything, I think I did really well. We made a lot of things from the freezer and pantry and whatnot. Going into week 2, I'm going to still be planning on using things. I definitely won't be canning. I'll be done canning probably until this flooring is repaired, which is sad because I do a lot of canning this time of year as well. That's okay. We'll just have to use up what we have. I guess go from there. So it might be more pantry stuff than big meals from the freezer. I guess I got to figure it out. So it's just really new. It literally just happened an hour and a half to 2 hours ago. They came out and said, okay, yeah, we're going to pull out all the fans and dehumidifiers. It's dry. And now we have to move on to the next part, which is getting somebody to fix everything and replace everything and getting that figured out. And so that will be a bigger project. And obviously we want to get it done sooner rather than later. I will keep you informed on my kitchen fiasco and kind of how that affects our pantry challenge. Now, let me know how you did in the comments below. Let me know how you did on your pantry challenge. And did you run into anything? Did you run into any weird things that happened? I hope you were able to do the pantry challenge. And yeah, keep me posted. We didn't go to the stores or anything. Obviously, we went to, get meals that one night, and then I got Subway. Let me know how you're doing. I'll keep you posted on us, and hopefully we can get our kitchen fixed and back up and running so I can keep strong in this pantry challenge and have my kitchen back, because I love my kitchen. I miss it. Until next week, good luck on your pantry challenge.